This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and this is a review of Top Gun Maverick, the long-awaited sequel to Top Gun. They didn't think they would ever make, and Tony Scott died, so they never make one. Dedicated to him, and dedicated to somebody else too. Died during the budget. Also, they so we have this weird. Tom Cruise is, if not 60, approaching 60, and he plays the fighter pilot instructor in it. Instructs them on a dangerous mission where they're going to fly into an unknown enemy territory, rogue country that they don't actually say. But at brief moments there are eagles on their planes or a red sun. So, and in the credits they mentioned places in India that were used. So it's probably Pakistan. But it was probably supposed to be China originally. So they just used different aircraft. So they used a technology where they film inside the cockpits of the airplanes. And they have actually the real pilot flying the plane and the actors like pretending. And so they have that. And that actually has two effects. If anybody's motion sick, they're not going to like it. They're going to have a headache. And I didn't get motion sick, but it did give me a little bit of a brain strain on that one. But yeah, it's still there. But the problem with it is that if you attach a camera to a moving object, it's supposed to look cool, right? And you have the camera moving with the object, like so. The depth perception for the object. Okay, let me explain the Top Gun shaky cam thing. If I'm in the plane following the action, and I'm in the plane and I'm stationary with the plane in the plane and following the action, it's not as exciting because literally you're seeing the plane and it's actually not moving as the camera sees it, as you can see. So yeah, it's not as it goes. I want to bank this way and I'm going to bank that way. But I was like, it was an interesting attempt, but it had the opposite effect. So, but yes, the premise that you have, they thought it looked great and cool and everything. It shows everything, but actually it threw it off because scale is gone. They're in the cooler in the fighter cockpit. Cool, you're seeing with the cockpit cam, but the scale is gone. So I don't know how you would. Part of the problem is they're showing the pilot and what he's doing, as opposed to showing the action of the plane flying around and what it's doing. And they showed that too, but they did it in such a way that when they were inside the planes, it was disconnected from what was outside the planes. So it made them look more like models, even though they weren't, because they were doing it. So yeah, that was the one side effect. The thing, because you had like the outside of the plane that's flying along, it's doing a banking roll thing, or Starscream here. He's doing a flying through the air here. Sure. But yeah, if the camera's completely following the action, it's like, there were plenty of other cool things in it. So that isn't really a drawback to it. But the basic plot is Tom Cruise is making Tom Cruise is training new pilots to go on a dangerous mission into enemy territory. They never say where. The movie's been sitting on a shelf for a year because of COVID. Come out last year. Val Kilmer is in it as a dying admiral because his voice is messed up because of cancer surgery. He was cast in as previous movie was Jane Silent Bob reboot. He had a cameo as Silent Bob in that one, a cameo. So yeah, so the he didn't die, but he had a scene where his character in the movie died. The 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 other wingman guy became an admiral, a general. Call him an admiral, but he's a general. He's supposed to be an admiral. If it's the Navy, they're all admirals technically. So Captain Maverick, whatever he would be technically a captain. Well, he'd be an admiral by now, but no, apparently not. Also, he was somehow able to direct the career of Goose's son. Goose, that sounds dirty. And slow him down in his career, which became a consternation moment thing. So the two of them are going to end up at the end, and they're going to have to save each other, of course, because dogfight thing and all that. Which leads to them doing the GTA 5 moment where they end up crashed near the enemy base, and they somehow get there, and then they outrun enemy machine gun fire and steal a plane like in GTA 5 and out of an airbase, fly off. Yeah, that's a video game. Yeah, you guys cribbed that from GTA 5 from one of the missions. Yeah, and the plane he was working on in the hangar also from that. But no, it was supposedly the plane from the original. The motorcycle supposedly from the original. When there was a Best Western hotel in Mojave Desert, near the freeway, back in the day, they used to have a Top Gun museum at the hotel, and there was a Top Gun place. There was a Top Gun the thing from the movie as well as the Fighter Town thing. And so you could go to Fighter Town, you could go down through there, and you could see all that stuff there. They tore down the Best Western around 2005 or so. I don't know if they rebuilt it, but the street's still there. The window's still there. You can see where they filmed the motorcycle going by like he's out in the middle of the desert. They did that again. It's not in the middle. Well, it is in the desert, but it's not in the middle of nowhere because there's like a town right on the other side. You turn around, there's a town right there. It's like, but they made it look like, oh, it's in the middle of nowhere, the edge of town. So they did that here too. The ex-girlfriend is running a bar. She's apparently divorced. Husband took off. She's got a kid. The kid isn't his. Of course, he eventually shacks up with her, but it's more like, well, they're in their 60s now, so yeah, they don't really show much of anything because they're in their 60s. Tom Cruise uses that Scientology Raelians to try and look like he's 45 or so. So he has that. I don't know if he still does the Scientology, but he's kind of weird. But he does grin an awful lot. But yeah, the movie doesn't work. It works on a lot of levels as a nostalgia story, nostalgia piece. The critics are literally fawning all over it, when ejaculating, eloquating everywhere, going on about how it's almost 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, 93. It's weird that there's 10,000 other reviews, 10,000 exactly, on the people review side in one of the Rotten Tomato forums. 10,000 exactly. It sounds like somebody bought that. Yeah. So, yeah, there were also previews that were very exciting. There's a preview for Jurassic World Dominion. There's a preview for Thor: The Dark World and some other forgettable movies. What about a Bullet Train? Looks like a remake, an American remake of something from Japan from earlier, yeah, that one looks like a remake. It does. I seem to remember something like that years ago. So they've remade that. But yeah, this movie, back to this movie at the top, too, it ticks all the boxes, goes all the right directions, has that odd in the plane, be there once a minute thing, which does work mostly, but it does give you a little bit of motion sick. Which, and even if you're not, it'll make you motion sick. Yeah, he's testing a super plane in the beginning and crashes it. And somehow he ejects and he walks into a bar and they're all, oh, it's they ask him if he's from Earth. Oh, because he thinks he's an alien. It goes Mach 10 allegedly in the stealth ship thing. There's a lot of they used a lot of Navy Air Force and Navy extras in this version and made it seem less insubordinate. Although he does insubordinate a few times, does get bucked down a few times because of the criticism of the first one where they were like, why can he get away with any of that stuff? They would kick him out of the training. But then it's Tom Cruise who's like, I'm going to waltz in and do everything perfectly because I'm Tom Cruise and going to go and complete the mission, and because none of these guys are worthy to be the commander of the whole squadron, I'll be the commander of the whole squadron. It'd be awesome. And it's like that wouldn't really happen, but okay, it's Hollywood. That's fine. Mostly people expressing a loss or moving on and wanting Tom Cruise's character to move on or whatnot, or mention of his friend Goose's or whatever. The Sun guy's bitter at first, but of course he won't be by the end, so it's fine. It's they're going to end up like trying to escape the enemy base at the end. So. In an old Tomcat, it's going to happen. And I saw two air bases, the Tumalak one and the Tukwila one, Washington and Oregon. The Tukwila one's near Boeing, the Boeing one. The Tumalak one's the other one. The Tumalak one had a top hat thing there. Tomcat. Oh, yeah. The other one, and there was a Veritech one, a Skull Leader one. The Tillamook one had the top hat. Yeah, get Walt look at it. Yeah, the other one did. No, maybe that's no. Yeah, I think that's what happened. One of them had top hat. The other one had. So they do have call signs and phrases and things like that on the planes. They do that. Yeah, and I got to see inside the Tomcat that was on display and the seating area, and there's just one or two seater on one, and so Tom Cruise could fit in that thing, but Gooseman couldn't have fit in that thing. So I don't know what they did. Did they saw off his lower legs? Because he was like 6 feet tall. There's no way. I'm 5'10" in my socks. Barely fit in the thing. Barely. So Tom Cruise is a short little dude. He's like 5'5", 5'6". He would fit in one of those Tomcats. So, yeah, he would. So that makes sense. Although their heroic escape at the end was completely Hollywood and just insane. But sure. And it was Mission Impossible at the end. Land the thing without landing gear in the cable thing. They got to put up the net so the ship can catch it. Let's beg the question: if they attacked a rogue nation, wouldn't that immediately lead to a war? That rogue nation, whatever they were fighting. But yeah, I mean, they just attacked them like brutally, like blew up their base. You think they know they're there and they radio for backup or something. They kept mentioning the 6th generation aircraft, clearly supposed to be Chinese or Soviet aircraft, but they wanted the China audience to like it, so. So they're like, oh, okay, it's not really them. It's really this other group. It's not really China. It's totally China. But yeah, so they sort of threw in places in India and Pakistan, I guess. They could have just said it was over Afghanistan. That would have made sense. Anyway, so you have Tom Cruise in all the characters. Yeah, had this sort of smug, like, wingman guy, hangman dude, who was basically like Cruise's character, but tall and couldn't fit in the cockpit. And you have this other sort of aspy dude that's the gunnery guy. He's in there. And that's cool, but he'd be too tall as well to fit an F-18 Hornet. F-18 Hornets in the military. They did use F-18s, but after he does the trick and does the test when he's not supposed to, it should have been booted out like, permanently. No, I'll just say he's the best, so he has to go. There's a weird Mission Impossible part 1 of 2 Mission Impossible finale thing. I guess because Tom Cruise is getting long in the tooth. It's called like the Fate or something. The Fates or something like that. So yeah, we have yeah, Tom Cruise, Top Gun, Maverick. Yeah, it's not a bad movie, but it certainly is not 5 stars like they're saying on the internet. It's not 4.5 stars. It's not that good. It's not 93%. Rotten Tomatoes is wrong. Yeah, it's visually pretty, but the story is very by the numbers, so it's not 5 stars. It's 3.5. It's 3.5. It's almost 4. It's 3.5. If I'm generous and say it's 4, that would make it 80%, and that's pretty good, but it's not quite 4. Because yeah, if you get like a headache watching the action and loud noises in the theater, that's the movie that's doing that. So you know, but yeah, 3.5. Which I believe is what I gave the first one in 1986. So yeah, it's as good as the first one. That's something, I guess. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Go see it. It's a big blockbuster movie thing. But yeah, if you have any experience with like any kind of Air Force or Navy or whatever people or anything, because you know if you've got that, then you're probably like overanalyzing the whole thing, going like, wait a minute, that would never happen. Wait a minute, that would never happen either. Wait a minute, you know, if you did. And of course, my late father was in World War II, Pacific Theater, Army Air Corps. That's a completely different universe, but passed away in 2009. But for him analyzing the first movie back in the day in the 80s, like that would never happen. He'd get court-martialed. None of this would actually happen. He wouldn't be a flight instructor with all kinds of decorated stuff. He'd get kicked out. I have to let him talk back to the superior officer and stuff. I'm the best, and now I'll prove I'm the best. That's not how it works. Well, well, that's Tom Cruise. So I've never served in anything, so all I know is from movies. So, the dogfights and stuff are cool, but yeah, the in the camera thing kind of didn't really work. They thought it was great. It was wonderful. Oh, look at the camera in the plane. Everything unknown side the lone side effect of it being a little bit nauseating. Excellent. Just don't eat it with a bunch of hot dogs beforehand. Anyway, that was Top Gun Maverick.